Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Ite Namani.
In 1970 in Australia, Churu and Baibabi were advertising Srila Prabhupada's coming to Australia. And there was a sign on the then temple in Paddington, pure devotee coming to Australia. So, pure devotee. And at that time I had just started coming to the temple and getting association with the devotees. And they were all tremendously excited about meeting a pure devotee. We were all devotees, but the big pure devotee was going to come. And their excitement and anticipation of his greatness and his purity really had a contagious effect on me. So when Srila Prabhupada finally did come, everybody hit the dust in the street of the Paddington Temple. And I thought this was a very unusual phenomena, and I was wondering, should I do it or should I not do it? Should I also do the same thing? So I wasn't sure what to do, so I participated anyway and offered obeisances, and then Srila Prabhupada went into the Paddington Temple, and amidst a very enthusiastic kirtan, he sat down on the Vyasasan. He was giving class, and of course this was my first time of seeing a pure devotee, the pure devotee, and it really was an amazing experience, an indescribable experience. The impact that Srila Prabhupada's presence had on me was absolutely profound. I knew that something was happening to me just by coming into his association, just by his coming into my vision. Something was happening to me, something purifying was happening to me, something auspicious was happening to me. And so that was the impact that I got when I first met Srila Prabhupada in Australia. And just one last thing to add to that is that I was previously studying Lobsang Rampa's books on auras. And so I was checking out Prabhupada's aura, and I was seeing around him this wonderful effulgence. He was definitely an effulgent personality. So then Prabhupada finally looked at me while I was looking at him. And while he looked at me, it was like he was looking at my soul. And it's like he knew me. And it was like the meeting of an old friend. And then Srila Prabhupada finally looked away, and then I knew that this is a pure devotee, and he certainly had a purifying impact on me, without a doubt.
So first time we came, I was still wearing karmic clothes. I remember the main gate was made with a bamboo, and there was Shanai was being played. You came there at the time? So it was a far out experience. We were staying in that little rooms that were there, and there were now shops. So I went to Prabhupada's quarters. He was already moved into the Lotus building. So everybody was sitting around. So I sit right at the corner of Prabhupada's table. So they were asking so many questions, and Prabhupada is going to great lengths to explain to them. So I thought, this is my chance to ask some nice and please him and get blessed. That was my whole idea behind getting the blessings of Prabhupada. So with great courage, I lifted my hand. Prabhupada, I have one question. So Prabhupada looked at me, towards me. Yes, in a very grave voice. Okay. But I did not give it up. I said, Prabhupada, I was reading your books. I'm so happy about that, but I have one question. How did Brahma understood the meaning of the word tapa? And nothing was created, including Sanskrit, or, nothing was done yet. How did he understand? I was presenting in a humble way. Maybe Prabhupada is seeing something else, and I did not know. I was, we come from the mundane world, There's so many subliminal desires are there, we don't know. So I asked this question. So Prabhupada just looked at me one more time. Don't think Krishna doesn't know what he's doing. And don't ask such stupid questions. For me, I thought, oh, Prabhupada, this was meant for your pleasure. He reduced me to stupidity. And I was like, my mind was going in uproar, But what can I argue with Prabhupada, We are completely ignorant. But somehow or other, I was quiet. We sat about an hour or more. Then we all left the room. But I was thinking, what did I do wrong? What is that? What is that? But that time, I already got the attachment. The next step was an initiation, everything. And I was thinking, taking my own time to initiate. I was not in a hurry to just join a club, because I gave up my family and job and everything for this. So I was not in a hurry. I was not in anxiety about initiation.
So the anticipation is building up. I'm going to get initiated, and I'm going to see Prabhupada for the first time. And then we're in Chicago, which was a little rough place, I guess, in those days. People were very American in a sense and defensive about it. If you didn't dress like an American and you didn't talk like an American, then you deserved to be abused. So we were 100% the opposite of what they thought Americans should look like. So, you had a few months to adjust to that, the shock that people didn't like you because you didn't dress like them. They were brutal in Chicago. They would arrest us on Harinam, arrest us on book distribution, even though the judge would always throw it out when we come in front of the judge. And police, everyone, just went out their way to make you feel unwanted. So this is the scene, and at that time, I am 19 years old. So they decide, Prabhupada's coming, and we're going to go to O'Hara Airport and greet Prabhupada in the airport with kirtan. And I'm thinking, they're going to arrest Prabhupada. I'm 19, naive, I don't, but, you don't question authority there much because I'm really low on the pecking order. But in my mind, I'm thinking, they say, why are they going to the airport to do this? This is going to be. So we go to the airport. There's probably 60 to 100 devotees with kirtan in the airport. And in those days, you could go up to the terminal. And I remember, of course, when there were kirtan and the media's there, and television stations, big scene in the airport. And I particularly remember the police because we would distribute books in the airport, and so we're always conscientious of the police and trying to avoid them or what are their reactions. And I'm looking at the whole scene, and I remember the policemen just standing over there with those faces. Like, I can't believe these people, or how dare they. Even the people walking through the airport are really just giving us the look like, you people, what is wrong with you? But the devotees are absorbed in just kirtan and anticipation and waiting for Prabhupada. And even myself, was, the first time you're going to see the pure devotee, the person you've been reading the books or the person you've been serving, And the video gave you a little sense of what he's like, but it's nothing like what it is when you see him in person. I think that was really one of the biggest realizations I got when we finally saw him. So anyway, plane lands, it's pulling up to the terminal. I believe Prabhupada came off first. I think they would give him the courtesy of coming off first. And doors are opening, and the kirtan is building up, and Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. It's really, and then you see Prabhupada. He's in front somehow or another. Maybe I think one devotee, but there's not any. And of course, naturally, you're going to give that big reaction like you would when you're greeting someone. But the most amazing thing to me was his reaction. When you see someone who doesn't have a false ego, when he comes through, he doesn't react the same way we would. Like if I'm coming through there and there's 100 people having kirtan for me, you know, either you're going to big smile, oh, thank you, you know, or you're going to act like, oh no, I'm not affected. But there's typical reactions that everybody does, and everybody interacts like that. That's part of the social aspect of an event. Prabhupada didn't do any of those things. So it's mine, but you're stunned because I'm stunned. Look, I go, but you weren't offended. I can't describe. You have to be there. That's the only way you can describe it. You have to be there to see the interactions. Then you see that this person is transcendental. He is not ordinary. And in the video, you could see he was older, so you expect him to kind of walk like an old person. But he's walking just like a young man, you know, with the cane. I'm thinking, he doesn't even need the cane. Why does he have it in the first place? And he's, you know, it's just, I'm in awe, and you don't know what to do because he's not reacting the way you expect. So you just kind of stand there like this. And I see him come around the corner, and he's turning. And as he turns, I catch those policemen that were standing like this. Now all of a sudden you see them, they're serving, they're walking with Prabhupada. Stand back, making everybody move. And they're totally changed. Everybody's changed. The TV reporters, all the karmis, all that defensiveness, that offensiveness, there's gone. And of course, you know, in the airport, at least that time, he went straight to the car, a little bit of an interview in the car, and he left and we ran back to the temple. But I remember afterwards in the airport, those policemen that were there, attitudes totally changed in the airport. They weren't any more, you know, harassers like they used to. Well, I heard with the exception of one person, someone said, they said a few weeks later he died from heart attack. The only one that didn't change. But the rest of them, just from seeing Prabhupada once, that was it. That was it. So that's that moment's association with a pure devotee.
When I first met Prabhupada, it was on 55th Street, and after months of rigorous construction work, which was my main service at that time, the last engagement I had was finishing up Srila Prabhupada's sitting room, which was on the 55th Street side of the New York Temple. And we had knocked out 3 walls and made a large suite out of those several rooms. And I was just finishing up the last painting and touch-up and detailing work on that room. And I can remember the color of the paint. It was a really beautiful sky blue. And I was exhausted from months of previous work and from the marathon to get bits and pieces tied up for Srila Prabhupada's arrival. And in the midst of working, I felt kind of exhausted and a little dizzy, and I thought, you know, I've just got to sit down for a minute on the floor and take a break, and I won't fall asleep, but I didn't feel well. And I did that. I sat down on the floor, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up, slumped over on the floor to Tamal Krishna Maharaj entering to my right, maybe 10 feet away, the room. And I can tell you, I clearly remember his nostrils became about dime size, and it looked like there was, you know, cartoons we saw when we were kids. There was smoke coming out of his ears, and his eyes were like pinwheels. And he stopped right there in the doorway, and Harasari came in and he said, what's the holdup? And he saw me there in my bibbed overalls and no shirt and shaved up with paint and plaster on me on the floor with my little paint tray and step stool, and he also looked surprised, to say the least. And then between them came Srila Prabhupada, and I was, the emotion I'm thinking of now, I was mortified. And Srila Prabhupada entered without hesitating and walked towards me, and I was on the floor and I didn't know what to do. I was rather awestruck, I think. And I folded my hands and I said, Jai Srila Prabhupada, and I went to pay my obeisances, and the floors were just triple waxed. And I slid on the floor about, oh, I don't know, 18 inches, 24 inches, with my head right to his feet. And my arms, practically speaking, were around his feet. And I sheepishly looked up, and I felt like a child that had done something wrong. I really felt like an idiot, you know. And I looked up at Srila Prabhupada sheepishly, and he had this huge Cheshire cat grin on his face, and he was looking down at me, and it looked like he was just going to burst out laughing any moment. And I gradually worked myself back up to my knees with my hands folded, and Srila Prabhupada said to me, have you done all of this work? And I said, I've done most of it. And he said, this is very nice. He said, thank you very much. And I can tell you, I picked up my little paint tray and my little step ladder and brush. And as I was leaving the room, really my feet were not touching the floor. I felt as though I just glided out of the room. So that was my first meeting with him. And what I take from that after all these years was his smile, which was brilliant, and my hair is standing up. I'm sure you can't see that on camera, thinking about it. So it was a very inspirational moment for me to see his cheerful, good humor and well-wishing. And I always thought, what a wonderful situation. Like our song says, I was asleep when I met him, and when I woke up to his radiance. So that was my first meeting with Srila Prabhupada.
I got first initiation in the Glebe Temple in Sydney in 1972. One very memorable episode was when Srila Prabhupada was coming to Australia. The temple president at that time was Vegavan Prabhu and his wife, Padmavati. Very nice devotees. And I said to them, Srila Prabhupada says that taking the water from the lotus feet of the pure devotee is essential for spiritual development. And that water is very, very powerful. So, especially the water that has washed the lotus feet of the spiritual master. So I became totally impassioned by this particular service, that to such an extent that if I didn't do it, my life would be totally incomplete. So in that mood, I went to Vegavan Prabhu and Padmavati, and they said, okay, look, you take the responsibility, you do it. And I took it up very enthusiastically. I had a beautiful big stainless steel bowl with warm water in it, fresh warm water, with rose petals, with scent, and there was a little short little table, foot table for Prabhupada to put his foot on. I had brand new cloth for drying his feet. So when Srila Prabhupada came into the Glebe Temple, which was a converted, one of the rooms in a house, So he came into the hallway, and before going into the temple room is where I had organized the foot washing to take place. And it went as planned. He put up his left foot, he put up his right foot, I poured the water on, and I dried his lotus feet, and he then went into the temple room, followed by a thunderous kirtan. So I was left with this huge big bowl of sanctified water from the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And everybody followed the kirtan, and I'm left alone with it. So then right next to the temple room is the kitchen. So I went into the kitchen, and I was all alone in the kitchen. And I had all this water. And I thought, I'm going to drink this water, and it's for self-purification. But I thought, no, I can't respect prasadam in Krishna's kitchen. So I said, I'd better go out the back. So I went out the back, and there was a veranda there. So again, I was alone. So I had this huge big bowl of water, and I started drinking it all. And just drinking it and drinking it. And when I got to almost to the end, Hari Sori Prabhu came up to me and says, hey, you're not going to drink all that by yourself, are you? And I said, yes, I am. But then I reluctantly gave him the last bit. So that water from the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada had such a profound effect on my consciousness. I felt as if my feet were not touching the ground for about a week after that. I was just floating everywhere. It was such a purifying substance. And because also of my faith, my dridha, in the power of that, just like if somebody has faith in the holy name, that the holy name's power is more released. So I had more than I had absolutely implicit faith that water was going to purify me, and absolutely it did. I'm somehow or other still around today trying to serve his lotus feet.
My interaction with Prabhupada was in a way unique, like Krishna deals with every soul in a very unique way. In my case, I was always chastised by Prabhupada. There was never a point where he said, oh, that is very nice, no pampering and no zhup, zhup. As a disciple should be chastised by the guru, because we didn't have a gurukul training. Normally you're chastised till you become smoothened out, like you beat the iron to bring it to the proper shape, red hot iron. So this is what Prabhupada did to me all the time. There was not one incident, and at one point, this was happening many times. It happened in Hyderabad and few other situations. So only in Nellore, when Prabhupada was going, I said I had to somehow do something so that he will be pleased. So in Bangalore we were preaching, so there was one person, we wanted to make him a life member. He was a famous dentist in India, top dentist. So I was showing my books, and because somebody recommended his case to me, so I went, please become a life member. So I told him, he said, but we are also doing similar work. So, oh really? Then we should work together. If you're doing a similar work, we should work together, then it'll be more strength. But he was hesitating. Then I said, well, you should become a member first. Let's do the first step and let's do work together later. But then he spelled it out. We accept Sai Baba as God. So I thought, okay. No, I realized, well, this is going to be a tough case. But on that day, I had this Bhagavatam, first canto part 3, where there's the scheduled incarnations of the Lords are mentioned, all the incarnations. I said, if I would wear your dress and a little mirror here, do I become a dentist just by wearing a dress? Just because I look like a dentist? No. I have to go through the process which you went through. So similarly, you may think Sai Baba is God. That's nice. It's okay. It's your choice. But let us refer to the Shastras. Where in the Shastra Sai Baba's name is mentioned? Please give me one reference. I'll be happy with that. Then he told me, Swamiji, you are a bookworm. You go by the book. I thought, well, Then I again told him, well, It's like anybody can become a dentist by putting the uniform. No need for any qualification, reference, tests, exams. So I went to Nellore because Prabhupada came to Nellore. So in the morning walk, I told Prabhupada, Prabhupada, this man told that we are bookworms. Because I told him the incident. Prabhupada looked at me, tell him that you are a worm in the stool. We follow the book, definitely. But these are not ordinary books. These are Shastras spoken by the Supreme Lord. These are the law books which guides the whole universe. Why we should not follow? So like that, there was one time I had a little bit, a response from Prabhupada which was more soothing, not with the stick. But otherwise, few other incidences happened before that, where Prabhupada came to Hyderabad, and I had the good fortune of doing public relation work for Prabhupada. So the temple opening was there, and there was nobody in the temple except the temple president, Mahamsa, and the architect Murti Das, and myself. I was supposed to do public relation, and everybody has gone out for collection because they had to bring money to finish the temple. So for me, it was like a greatest chance to do this public relation work, because I learned in Bangalore from one life member lady who was from Harvard and Stanford University, Indian lady. So she trained me how to do press conferences, everything for our program. So that same format I applied for Hyderabad, and was a big success. The opening day, about 150,000 people came. That was the police report. And the press conference, 45 press people came. And Prabhupada asked me, so what am I going to speak? I said, Prabhupada, the problem is, nowadays everybody asks, how are we going to maintain if everybody becomes Krishna conscious? Where will the food come from, this and that? So I selected this verse, Annat Bhavanti Bhutani Parjanyat Anna Sambhavad. So this verse I took. So please, the subject matter of the press conference will be this. So Prabhupada was very happy. So we did a conference, and he was very strongly was present, unless we know the process of performance of yajna. Just like a government doesn't run without taxes. Every government will tax. The tax is the yajna of the people. They have to pay a little share of their earnings, whatever they do. So similarly, yajna is a process of paying taxes toward the demigods. And this way the whole universe is maintained, and they reciprocate, we reciprocate. It's all a question of teamwork. So I was very happy that Prabhupada was doing this press conference in a fantastic way. And it came in every newspaper on the front page for like 5-6 days. And it was such a publicity. And the front page ad, everything was like one of the best public relation work I could ever do. But because it was for Prabhupada's pleasure, sky was the limit for my enthusiasm. We could hardly sleep maybe 1 or 2 hours a day for 15 days. No hunger, no thirst, nothing. No, we didn't care for anything. Because Prabhupada is coming, you have to do them nicely. And the temple opening was very good. And Prabhupada was very happy and pleased. It was the first temple in India where a land was donated. Everywhere we had to buy land. Mayapur, Vrindavan. Vrindavan, I think we got something donated. Bombay, we had to buy. Everywhere we had to buy. But Hyderabad, we got the choice piece of land right in the center of the city. You've been familiar with that place? Okay. So, and we made this temple, Radha Madan Mohan temple. Krishna was in a very, like a little hut. Then we moved into this place. It was a grand success.
I think it was maybe I don't know if I made it back to the airport in time, or maybe it was the next day, but now he's in the temple room, and this is the 75, so this is when Radha Damodar buses were there, and it was a huge gathering of devotees, which generally didn't happen from so many temples. So the temple room was packed up. There's too many devotees there. And somehow or another, I got myself in a position where, I'm right in front of us, Prabhupada's coming in to greet the deities. So, of course, I'm just in awe, and I'm just standing and looking like this, and Tamal Krishna is kind of leading a group there with Sudama, I think Vishnu John Swami, and some others are there. Anyway, I guess he seen my enthusiasm. He gives me Prabhupada's chuttering cane to hold. So I get to get kind of an entourage there in the back, a nice little space behind Prabhupada. I'm thinking, wow, this is really great. I can't believe it. And he goes up to Gaurni Thai's altar. At that time, it was just punch it out to a picture, no Gaurni Thai. deities. And Prabhupada lays down and pays full obeisance, which to me is another, even now I can't do full, I'm too old, but he does full dandavats. And his feet are sticking out. So I believe before Prabhupada came, Tamal arrived, and he gave us this instruction. Whatever you do, don't touch Prabhupada's feet, because he doesn't want to get sick, and people are touching his feet and they're getting sick. And I remember thinking to myself also, like, well, he's going to initiate me. How is he, what's worse, initiating me or me touching his feet? I don't get this. But I'm Bhakta Nate, so what am I supposed to be arguing about? So I'm standing there, and somehow or another, I get this voice, this inner voice, says, you should touch his feet. I said, no way you can touch his feet. We're right here in front of the deities. And he said not to do it. I'm not going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. But, I want to do it, but I'm not going to do it. And then after I saw them pay their obeisances, there was no room for me to pay the obeisance because I've got all the things and I'm right behind them. Like, oh. And then the voice says, if you don't touch his feet, you're never, ever going to get this opportunity again. And besides, nobody's going to see you. They're all paying obeisances. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it at the next altar. So he goes in front of Kishore. He goes down. And I gently go down with my head. And I just touch the bottom of his feet. Very softly, and I come up. Tamal Krishna Maharaj saw me. I couldn't put another thick on the look. I got caught. He looks at me with those fiery eyes. And he takes that chuttering cane away from me. And I'm standing, can I do, Prabhupada didn't say anything. He didn't say anything at all. Anyway, many years later, then when I was telling you before, I was talking with Brahmananda, and I talked about that also. I told him how, I put my head on Prabhupada's feet, and on the bottom too. I mean, that was, he looked at me and says, you did what? I said, what did Prabhupada say? He didn't say anything. He said, I saw in Vrindavan, India, someone did that, and he turned around and he just lit him up, for touching his feet in front of the deities. I guess he saw it so new, he just, he didn't say anything. And he went to the Vyasa-san. I took the fan. I'm fanning him too. It was just so anyway, I got a little extra mercy there. Somehow or another, Krishna let me. I don't know how many devotees can say they touched Prabhupada's feet, but I didn't. I got the bottom, the dust. So forgive me for the offense in front of the deities.
This is the second of the three good fortunes I had of spending some time with Srila Prabhupada personally. It was rather difficult in those days for a new kid on the block, and I was fairly new. I joined in '75. And at this time, it was around the same time, Srila Prabhupada was visiting the Manhattan Temple, and he was on his initial inspection, and although I had spearheaded construction on the building with Tosan Krishna, and Pancharatna was our quasi-bhakta leader, I wasn't invited to go on the initial inspection. However, being familiar with the building as I was, I knew the fire doors that didn't lock. There were certain doors that would not close securely. So I waited until Srila Prabhupada and the entourage passed this particular fire door, and Tamal Krishna was there, and Adi Keshava was there, Bhavananda, Sudama, Madhavisa, maybe Sri Ram. So whoever, anybody who was anybody was kind of there at that time. And I waited just until the entourage passed the fire door, and I opened it as quietly as I could, and I slipped into the back of the procession, and just Dunya Maharaj was there, and he said, hey, you can't be here, and this was by invitation. I said, no, I want to spend time with Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada stopped, and he turned around, and he looked right at us in the back of the procession, and that was it. Boy, we were just like, fell into line like a couple of choir boys, and that was the end of it. He just gave us a look. And so, but what followed that was curious, and I sort of haunted by it in a way. Tamal Krishna suggested to Srila Prabhupada that we sell the building on 55th Street, and Srila Prabhupada pretty much ignored him, and it struck me because I had put so much blood, sweat, and tears into working on it, so I was personally attached. And then Adi Keshava said, and with this, I think it was $2.1 million they were anticipating in profit at the time, we can do some other I guess he was going to say project, and Srila Prabhupada interrupted him and he said, stop. He said, do not sell this building. Where will the devotees go? Where will the deities go? If you sell this building, so many devotees will fall down. And Adikeshava attempted to persist, and he said, but Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada took his cane and he slammed it on the floor. And he said, no, no means no. And that was the end of the conversation, and we proceeded with the inspection floor by floor. And I think the memory, I take care of that. And there's another story that goes along with this about the subsequent meeting that I crashed when they were planning to sell the 55th Street Temple, but I don't think it's appropriate to discuss that now, but I interrupted their meeting when they were talking about how they were going to sell the building. But what I took away from that experience was, for me, certainly personally, and for all of us as Prabhupada's disciples, what the consequences are for disobeying a direct order of the spiritual master. And of course, what we saw subsequent to selling the building was a tragedy of epic proportions.
When I got initiated, second initiation, I got first initiation in 1972 in Glebe in Sydney. And then I got second initiation in Mayapur in 1975 in the Lotus Building, Guru Purnima Day at about 11 a.m. in the morning. And this is probably the most significant event that has taken place in my life, because that's the day I got Gayatri initiation from Srila Prabhupada. So before the initiation took place, I'm thinking in my mind that I want to ask Srila Prabhupada some intelligent philosophical questions so that I can impress upon him that I'm studying his books and that I appreciate his presentation of the philosophy, and that I'm having some philosophical understanding of it. And in that way, he would appreciate my being an intelligent disciple, trying to intelligently understand his presentation of Krishna, philosophical presentation of Krishna consciousness. But when I got in front of Srila Prabhupada, it was just me and him. My mind totally went blank, totally blank. I'd forgotten everything. Krishna blanked me out. It was just quite incredible. So Prabhupada recited the mantras, all of the Gayatri mantras, and I repeated those mantras, and I didn't say a word. I didn't ask anything. I ended up being an obedient, submissive disciple by dint of Krishna's giving me a blank and just being totally in awe of Srila Prabhupada. Many years later, when I read Srila Prabhupada's books, very, very carefully, I noted that Prabhupada said that if a disciple thinks of himself as anything other than a fool in front of his spiritual master, he becomes a resident of Nadaloka, of a hellish planet. So when I thought back how Krishna blanked my mind out in front of Srila Prabhupada, I thought that Krishna saved me from trying to make some impression on Srila Prabhupada and presenting myself other than a fool. The fact that I didn't say anything in front of Srila Prabhupada kind of indicates that I'm a fool, and which was good. So I really learnt that lesson from that interaction with Srila Prabhupada. by the mercy of Krishna. By the mercy of Krishna one gets Guru, and by the mercy of Guru one gets Krishna. So Krishna is very, very merciful. Srila Prabhupada is very merciful. And I just hope that until my last breath I can always be a fool in front of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
We used to go for morning walk in Hyderabad farm. We got the first farm donated. Hyderabad was like a hidden gold mine for Prabhupada. We got the first temple land donated, and then we got a farm which was 600 acres of land. This was one of the biggest farms. New Vrindavan and all will not even come near it. There we had to buy all the lands. But this was all, one piece of land was donated by Badruka families. And Prabhupada was very happy. You know, we got a land, we had to do something solid here. So every day you would go on the morning walk. So then we had the chance to be with him and every walk, because there was no temple program. We had just a little Mangala Arati, and then Prabhupada would go and we would go behind him. And because Prabhupada was there, we did some bullock cart traveling in nearby villages, and a lot of people used to come, and we had prasadam distribution. So one night the prasadam was distributed, and somehow it was, you know, I guess so much happening, nobody thought of cleaning a certain spot where Prabhupada's Vyasasan was there under a tree. So Prabhupada comes from the morning walk, and he sees an Indian Mataji. There was not many married people at those days, couples, but there's one couple was there, and she was brooming outside the house after the sun rises. So this is not a good sign. You have to broom the house, outside the house especially, before the sunrise. Because when the sun rises, you don't stand before with a broom. It's not a good, no. So after all, the Supreme Lord is in the form of sun, is giving us light. So you don't greet him with a broom, you know, in the hand. So there's also subtle reasons for all these things. So this lady, you know, she was just doing, and Prabhupada said, Indians are forgetting everything. And he was, that particular day was like a fireball, you know. There's so many mistakes everywhere, everything. And he was chastising every one of us. So he was trying to go to his Vyasasan, and he could see that place was all muchi. It was not cleaned. So he said, yesterday it was so clean, there were little puddles of water on that same platform, and I had to tiptoe myself to the Vyasasan. And today it is so muchi, I cannot even go up there. So somehow or other Prabhupada sat on the Vyasasan. And then, of course, one devotee, one of our God brothers, Patidharan, he wanted to somehow do something about the situation. So Prabhupada left his shoes there, so I picked the shoes and held it in my hand, and he was taking a knife, a little knife to scrub. So Prabhupada looked at him, what are you doing? Oh, I'm cleaning. What are you cleaning with? A little pen knife. Take this knife and cut your throat. I thought, oh my goodness, Prabhupada is in the fire today. Then there was another Bengali devotee called Govinda Das. Yeah, I don't see him so often, but then they were talking in Bengali, why don't you do something about it, you know? And of course Govinda Das was telling, you know, but you know, even if you do, nobody listens here, you know, that, you know. Then he looked at me, said, then he actually started with a very heavy word, Swar ka bacha, Kutte ka bacha, you know, means son of a pig, son of a dog, you know, heavy words, you know. I said, beware of your association with these mlechas and yavanas. They'll spoil everything. You know what is going on here. Why didn't you do something about it? I mean, what can I say to Prabhupada? You know, I was just putting my head down, you know. It was a very awkward situation. I was holding his shoes, I was putting my head down. Said, you should teach by your example. But beware of your association with these mlechas and yavanas. And there were so many GBCs were there. There were a lot of senior devotees came. Hansaduta, Harikesh, and so many other devotees were there. So this was a very strong instruction he gave me to be always alert. Don't take anything for granted. Even though you are in the Hare Krishna movement, don't think that we are all, you know, sometimes we assume we are all devotees, not really knowing what is the depth of the meaning of a devotee. What to speak of, you know, the other things which is going on. Still, a lot of things has to be done, a lot of work is still left. But one should not become familiar with this Krishna conscious culture. Because if you make an aparad, there's a reaction. You know, there's 4 types of aparad. Vaishnava aparad, Nam aparad, Dham aparad, Seva aparad. So you can commit aparad at any level. And when the aparad happens, aparadha, the word itself says you will be taken away from aradhana, from service to Krishna. Some blocks will come. So suddenly you lose interest in chanting, suddenly you no enthusiasm to do service. You know. So these are some things very important to learn. And Prabhupada told, don't take things for granted. Think. You know, think before. Just because somebody says doesn't mean you have to just accept it blindly. But because the movement runs in a certain direction, sometimes you don't know whether it's time to think about all this. Your thinking means a sure shot of divorce. But we don't want to work divorce because Prabhupada said we should work together, cooperate together. And in the last days he made the statement, your love for me is shown by how you cooperate. So this is a challenging thing for us. So we have to also raise our adhikar from Kanishta level to Madhyam level so that we can reconcile all contradictory situations and statements of Prabhupada and resolve it in a way so that our determination to serve Krishna becomes very strong. And that's what Prabhupada himself did in his own life. After all, the Gaudiya Math suddenly collapsed. And there were some God brothers whom he worked, they could not work anymore. Their followers, they were saying something. So he did not lose his mind. He was very determined, he was very fixed. His Guru's order was there, he was very firm faith. And they were all well-wishers, but he never took them as a reason for anything. But it's like, you know, no lamentation and no hankering, no lamentation. Whatever happens, it is your desire, Lord. But let me do some service for you. So this is a very important chastisement which I received.
I remember here in Mayapur when the opening of the Mayapur Chandrodaya temple took place. It was the first Mangalatik with Srila Prabhupada in the Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir. Srila Prabhupada was upstairs in his room and the Mangalatik was on the ground floor. It was an absolutely tumultuous Mangalatik and it was led by His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And it was boisterous. It was an amazing kirtan. It was just from start to finish. It was fully ecstatic. Nothing was slow. Everyone was dancing. Everyone was practically reaching the ceilings. And it was an unforgettable Mangalati. And obviously it was the part of the auspiciousness of things to come in Mayapur. It was the inauguration of all the chanting that would follow. So after Mangalatik, Tamal Krishna Maharaj went up to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada commented about the Mangalatik. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj came back down and made an announcement to the devotees. And he announced to the devotees that Srila Prabhupada said about that Mangalatik that if you all keep chanting like that, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself will personally come here and take you all back home, back to Godhead. So all the devotees gave a huge big Hari Bol to that. And so that was a very fond memory that I have of Srila Prabhupada's appreciating the kirtans in the Mayapur temple.
Also during that period in Chicago, of course, having so many devotees there, devotees weren't accustomed to having a large initiation, even though the Evanston Temple was considered a big temple room in those days. But at that time, they were going to install the Gorni Thai deities for the buses and initiate all the devotees. As a matter of fact, there were so many devotees that they arranged it in such a way that the women couldn't get initiated. There was no room for them. Anyway, afterwards, they complained to Prabhupada, so he made them do it the second day for them. But the first day, there was no room for them. So anyway, we're in there and the initiations are going on, and you can imagine there's multiple lists from different temples. Things are getting a little chaotic. And then one thing you definitely notice with Srila Prabhupada, he did not like to waste time. So as initiations are going on, they're calling people up. You can see he's getting a little, hey, come on, let's get this thing going. By that time, they called me up. My name is Nathaniel Bhakta Nate. So, of course, I knew a month or two before I'm getting initiated, and I'm thinking, you're going to get some cool names within, Nityananda, Nardamuni, Nrsinga, you name it. And you can't go wrong within Narayan, something or another. I go, man, I can't wait. So, like, Bhakta Nate. I come up, and of course, I'm walking a little proud in front of Prabhupada. And what are the rules and regulations? How many rounds do you chant? Answer everything very nice. And he's reaching out with the beads. He says, and your name is Sikhi Mahiti Das. And I'm shocked. I think Sikhi Mahiti, what the heck is that? It don't even sound like a name of Krishna. But I'm not trying not to look disappointed. And actually the whole room was kind of quiet because Chaitanya Chaudhary was just, I don't think it hadn't come out yet. They haven't published it yet. So then he explains, he says, Sikhi Mahiti was one of the 3.5 most confidential servants of Lord Chaitanya. He's looking at me right in my face. And I'm still looking disappointed. He goes, and it's a very nice name. And I take my beads. And I'm like, man, I can't believe Krishna just smashed my ego. Sikhi Mahiti. Anyway, at least it's a unique name. You don't meet too many people with that name, so I can be grateful for that. But to this day, even Indian people, what is your name, Prabhu? Sikhi Mahiti Das. Oh, what does it mean? And they don't even know what it means. So it's a name more popular in near Orissa, in that area. So there, if you say Sikhi Mahiti, nobody will ask you that. But outside of the area, nobody knows. Anyway, I thought I'd just throw that in there. All right. That's it for me and Prabhupada outside.
After we finished construction in New York, and while Prabhupada was there in '76, so these experiences all happened close to each other, Srila Prabhupada was on his way out to the farm in Port Royal, Pennsylvania. We called it the Port Royal Farm at the time. It hadn't been named. And two things happened that were interesting. Srila Prabhupada went out on a Radha Damodar bus from the New York temple, and I was one of the few devotees that had a car, and I had 2 cars. One of those cars was a '73 Dodge with a 330 horsepower engine that I had built across the river in New Jersey, where I'm from, very, very fast. So I took off shortly after the Radha Damodar bus, but when I was at the front door attempting to leave for the Port Royal Farm, Adi Keshava was there and Bhavananda were there at the front door, and they said, where are you going? And I said, I want to go out to the farm and spend time with Srila Prabhupada. And they said, you're supposed to be going out to Port Authority doing book distribution, which was what I did when I wasn't building. Pragosh was my partner. And I said, yeah, I know, but I want to go and stay with Srila Prabhupada. And Adi Keshava told me, you're in Maya. And I said, well, I'll take my chances. I'm going to go spend time with Srila Prabhupada. So I flew out to Port Royal's, about a 5-hour drive from the New York temple. And I was coming through the Delaware Water Gap, and a Pennsylvania highway state trooper stopped me. And I had my tilak on and shaved up and incense going and Prabhupada's tape on, and I was coming barreling down a mountain in the Poconos, and he pulled me over and he said, do you realize how fast you were going? And I said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, I'm trying to beat this bus that's coming out here. My spiritual master's on it, and I want to make sure everything is ready for him. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, I've got to go. I said, I've really got to go. And he said, well, just slow down. And he let me go just like that. So I got there and got to the temple, and Parmananda was there. And he said, Jaya Gaurasundara, we don't have a Vyasasan for Srila Prabhupada. And I said, you must be kidding me. And he said, well, we don't. What can we do? And I thought for a moment, and I said, okay, you go get some cinder blocks, you get some planks. I had Satyabhama, his wife. I get some fabric and pillows, and long story short, I made this makeshift Vyasasan that was kind of garish, I think, being a Finnish carpenter and designer in those days. But I stood back and I thought, well, it's okay, it's all we've got. And so just when I was done, the Radha Damodar bus was coming in behind, 20 minutes behind me. And Srila Prabhupada came out, and we had a huge kirtan, and paid our obeisances, of course. But after Prabhupada, what came out of the Radha Damodar bus was this beautiful traveling Vyasasan with a marble base and crushed velvet lotus petal back. And I was so I was crushed when I saw it coming out. I thought, oh, God, he's not going to use the one that I made, and I was feeling bad about that somehow. And so he went into the temple room, and they followed him in, and quickly it was a prefab kind of modular thing. The base and the arms and the back went in, and it was ready for Srila Prabhupada. And as he walked up to the front of the temple, he went and sat on the big garish makeshift Vyasasan that I had put together. And I was delighted, to say the least, and thought, why would he choose that? But he did. Later that afternoon, there's a sequelae to this story. We went out, and I had somehow or other, I was always weaseling my way in to get close to Prabhupada, and he wanted to tour the farm. So we were in Parmananda's green, I think it was a 63 or 64 International Scout. And Parmananda was driving, Srila Prabhupada was in the driver's seat, and we had hay bales in the back. There were no seats, and Vishnu John was on one side, Drishnadunya Maharaj was on one hay bale, and I was behind Srila Prabhupada on the other one. And we were touring the farm. We came up to a beautiful meadow, and there was just rolling hills and pasture going on. Prabhupada put his hand up and he said, stop here. And Parmananda said, Srila Prabhupada, what is it? And he said, this looks like the place where Radharani appeared, so we're going to call this farm New Varshana. And that was how the farm got its name. And if you look at the old Back to Godheads, long before it was Gita Nagari, which Tamal Krishna changed the name many, many years later, you will see that, in fact, the name of the farm is New Varshana. So I don't know what I take away from that except the good fortune of having been there at the time and have a few more minutes of being close to Srila Prabhupada.
One time in Sridham Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada was engaging us in feeding the local residents khichdi prasadam. I was one of the cooks, and cooking is not my speciality, but when Prabhupada wanted something, we would specialize in it. And we would cook this khichdi that would taste like sweet rice. It was so, not that it tastes like sweet rice, but it was so delicious that it tasted as delicious as sweet rice. So we would offer it to Srila Prabhupada. We cooked it in these huge big wots, and Srila Prabhupada would relish that, and then we would take his prasadam, and then Srila Prabhupada would, in the east side of the Bhajan Kurti, there was a little window. That window is not there now, but perhaps that should be restored, because that window is a very famous window that Srila Prabhupada used to spend quite a bit of considerable time watching the pilgrims eating the khichdi prasadam. The pilgrims could not see him, but he could see them, and he would watch them with great satisfaction. So that's another very nice memory I have of Srila Prabhupada in terms of the wonderful prasad distribution that is still going on even today on a greater and greater scale, and how fond Srila Prabhupada was of that program, and how much pleased he would be to see that that program is still being carried on today. See, Srila Prabhupada's wanting to make sure, or ensuring that nobody would, in a certain, around the Mayapur campus would go hungry, can be seen from different perspectives. One is that his compassion for other people who are genuinely suffering, because the people who are poverty-stricken in India, they really do have very poverty-stricken situations where they quite often don't get a good, substantial meal. So that perspective is his compassion. The other perspective is that prasadam distribution is spiritual compassion. So one perspective is his material compassion, which Vaishnavas are, and the other perspective is his spiritual compassion, is that by giving them prasadam, they automatically make spiritual advancement. So that's what I saw as something very significant, is that he would not ignore people's material needs, but at the same time, when he did give them their material needs, it was also had the spiritual touch to it, which I thought was quite ingenious.
There was another incident happened. When I joined the temple, there was one cook. We were getting prasadam. So naturally I had respect for prasadam, because prasadam brought me to Krishna's, this movement, from Balaji prasadam to... So I was also going, even before coming to our Hare Krishna temple, to a neighboring Lakshmi Narayan temple, and every Sunday I would get Mahaprasad. I would only go there just for a little Mahaprasad, to parikrama and then get Mahaprasad. So our life, whatever progress we made was by the mercy of the Lord in the form of prasadam. So when I came to the temple, there was this upma. One day he made an upma, and all the devotees were making into a little ball of upma and were playing around. They were passing it like a football. Or I was like, Prabhu, don't treat prasad like this is prasad. Oh, you can have it all. We don't. So I was wondering, why should I have everything? I can only eat this much. So I took a little bit and put it in my mouth. Oh, what is this? Put it in, I can't open my mouth. If you open the mouth, you can't close it. So this is strange upma, this is. But I didn't want to, start criticizing the management or whatever it is. I kept quiet. But I felt this person really has no idea how to cook. Everything, rice, dal, everything was useless, But then, after opening the new temple, the Sunday feast came. So 800 guests. And Prabhupada saw that all the guests were giving nice prasadam. So Prabhupada told Mahamsa, you're giving everybody Mahaprasad, prasadam, feast. Why don't I taste this prasad also? Bring this prasad. So Mahamsa was all enthusiastic. He went to the kitchen, made a plate and brought it to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada took each item mouth and put it back, and put it in the mouth and put it back. Prabhupada then looked at him. You're feeding this to the guests? He said, yes, Prabhupada, yes, Prabhupada. This is not even fit for feeding to the dogs. And this Prabhupada was so furious. He said, but Prabhupada, who is cooking this? So they're telling this honest man. This is the main bone of contention. He's an honest man, he's cooking. He said, he is not honest. This man is not a cook. This is no symptom of any cooking like this. They said, then when they said again and again, but he's an honest man, yes, you're eating garbage and speaking garbage. They told Vasugash that. You're eating garbage and speaking garbage. I don't know the exact words, but this is the spirit of the whole discussion that happened. I was so relieved. I said, finally, Prabhupada so you should throw this cook out of this place. So finally, next day morning, they threw him out. I was all happy. I thought, finally, it confirmed my thoughts. This is not a standard, what is this useless standard everything is. But now we are in the moment, we are part of the same family, we have to upgrade it. But how to upgrade it? Not was easy. And then during one of this Sunday program, I was leading the chanting. This I think Hariswari did not mention maybe, but I know what happened. So I was leading the chanting. So people are there, Bolo, Hare Krishna, Hare, no, Bolo, just say. Because in the earlier tapes, Prabhupada used to say, Bhaja Hare Krishna, Bhaja Sri Krishna Chaitanya. This Prabhupada himself changed over a period of time, Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And there was a good reason for that. So I thought if Prabhupada is saying, I'm only repeating these words. So then I just once I said, Bolo, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And immediately Prabhupada sent Hariswari. Prabhupada said that you should not add anything to Hare Krishna mantra. No bolo, nothing. Oh, my goodness. It was just an indication to let people chant, but I was not adding anything, but it was an instruction that came from Prabhupada. Hariswari, I don't know if he mentioned that, but he sent him. I said, okay, don't. Hare Krishna, let us chant Hare Krishna. So there are a few incidences like that happened also.
I have another very fond memory of when Srila Prabhupada was in the Lotus building in 1975, I believe it was 74, 75. And I somehow or other was privileged to be able to participate in preparing Srila Prabhupada's lunch prasadam. And I specifically volunteered to cook the sweet rice because I had heard that Srila Prabhupada's recipe for sweet rice was 16 parts of milk to 1 part of rice and to 1 part of sugar, and with a little bit of camphor. And so I followed that recipe, Srila Prabhupada's recipe, religiously. Again, it was something that I took it as my life and soul to make it perfect. And it was a very hot kitchen, and you had to stir the sweet rice very slowly so that it doesn't stick, because if you don't, then it sticks, and if it sticks, then it gets burnt, then the whole thing is ruined. So you had to cook it very slowly and for a long time, and eventually it becomes a very wonderful consistency of condensed milk with rice in it, and with this wonderful flavoring. So I followed all that, and went on to Srila Prabhupada's plate, and it went up to Srila Prabhupada's room, and then I was in the kitchen cleaning up, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj came into the kitchen. He said, "Who cooked the sweet rice?" I said, "Oh my God, what have I done? I've had it." I really thought I had. I said, "It was me." He said, "Srila Prabhupada really liked it." And it was such a relief that I'd actually pleased my spiritual master, that I did one little thing that he appreciated. So it was a great relief that I'd done one tiny bit of service that he appreciated, to such an extent that that sweet rice must have come out so good that Prabhupada appreciated it, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj came down to extend the appreciation, similar to what he did with the Mangalati. So that's one little memory of causeless mercy that I got from Srila Prabhupada. The fact that Prabhupada relished it and then took the trouble, or made the effort to extend that appreciation to someone who was unknown to him, but just out of a pure appreciation for something that he relished, really says a lot for his magnanimous character of how he would appreciate everyone's service, whether it was big or small. And it was definitely a small service. It was not, you know, the sweet rider's gone in 5 minutes, you know. You get something else the next day. But it really did make my day, the fact that Srila Prabhupada did extend that appreciation. And what it says for his character is his magnanimity. You know, how magnanimous is that? That he would appreciate just such a small thing. He's so grateful, because it wasn't a very big thing, but his appreciation was a very big thing.
There was an incident that happened I used to lead kirtans in Bombay, in our old temple, in that shack of Radha Rasbihari. So devotees knew that I was good at kirtan, I was enthusiastic. So they told me, oh, Prabhupada is here, because the new guest house had been built. He was staying in his guest room already, fully furnished guest room. So you should go. Prabhupada was a little bit sickly, you know, not keeping well. Prabhupada wanted only kirtan is the only medicine. So they were, why don't you sing for Prabhupada? I said, you know, I'm not that big of a great soul. What will I sing? So no, you should sing. So and I went. So I sat along with one boy, very young boy, Lakshmi Narayan, his name. He's still there in Bombay. And he was playing mridanga. So naturally my voice is on a higher note. So if I had to sing natural, I had to sing on a higher note. And then he would sing on a lower note. So we were like a little bit entangled with our trying to follow each other properly. And it didn't please Prabhupada. So at that time Lokanath Maharaj was around also. Told Tamal, come here, get rid of these two boys. They're not able to consistently sing, you know, it's too many breaks. And Prabhupada wants to hear the holy name actually. So again, it was a situation where, you know, when will I ever please Prabhupada, do something that he is happy about it. But see, yes, as Krishna says, every endeavor is covered with faults, just like smoke covers fire. So what, I may be imperfect, but he has chastised me, but we are chastised by a pure devotee. So sun is purifying, is taking water from all dirty places, and the result is you get pure water. So what? This is Prabhupada is chastising, not any Tom, Dick and Harry. So let him chastise. But it's difficult. Now I can reconcile more than then. I was thinking, wow, everything I do seems to be wrong. What is this, you know? What am I doing, you know? But chastisement of a guru is also a blessing. Actually, it's a supreme form of blessing. It is said when a guru, like Krishna chastised Arjuna, you're talking like a wise man, but you don't know what is, you know, you're lamenting for that which is not worthy of lamentation. So even Krishna chastised Arjuna, and then he spoke the whole Bhagavad Gita. So in that way, if you take it in the bigger picture, in the angle of bigger picture, then actually it's Guru's chastisement is mercy, pure mercy. And that's what keeps me going. We have seen, after all these other chastisements is very small time. Prabhupada is chastised in such a way to make us tough, you know, because life is going to be full of problems. Prabhupada himself had to face problems with his own God brothers sometimes. Even Lord Jesus, he was crucified. By whom? By the same priests of the same Jews. Haridas Thakur was beaten up. By whom? By the same Muslim priests. So everywhere, if you see in the history of humanity, Uttama Bhagavatas are always threatened by Kanishtas. Kanishtas, they want to climb the ladder, set up a situation so everything is comfortable. And Uttama Bhagavat will completely stir up the whole thing. They don't like this comfortable situation being disturbed, so they'll attack. And this is a continuous story. Even Gaur Govinda Maharaj, such a well-wisher, and you know, it was some strange events have happened. He was a member of the GBC, but still he had to go through some very awkward situation. So you can see, Kanishtas are not comfortable when Uttamas speak. So for me, there's no question of being a Uttama or anything, but being chastised by Guru itself is a training to mature. Come on, you cannot just be complacent and stay on the lowest level, settling for some useless thing. No, you have to improve yourself. I'm not going to change the world, but the change has to come from me, within. And this is what Prabhupada gave me the message very clearly. Because that's what he chastised in Hyderabad farm, you know.
Mayapur, the last Gopanim he attended, February 1977. My first time coming to India, And anyway, I got to kind of tell a few things to get up to that, I guess. But I wasn't even, generally they schedule Sankirtan devotees to go, and it really wasn't scheduled. But I planned in such a way, I wanted to get my Brahmin initiation from Prabhupada. I thought it would be great to get it in Mayapur. And from Prabhupada, it's like, you can't beat that, you know. So anyway, I called my mother, who wasn't favorable in the beginning for me being a devotee. And I just, at the last minute, say, okay. Because they say, if you get your own money, you can go. Which meant you didn't take Sankirtan money. You get it from your relatives. So I called him, I need $1,500 to go to India. She goes, okay. I said, thank you, Krishna. So I got the money. You can go. So anyway, that was one of those years where they took the 747 full of devotees, which is a whole other story in itself. That was, probably heard that 1,000 times, but that was, I thought devotees went like that all the time to India. Great trip. So at that time, I'm thinking also now, I want to get closer association with Prabhupada if I can. Because being a new devotee, you know, our mood was to serve, not to enjoy the Guru. And as your service required, you would rise up to the point where maybe you're part of the intimate, more closer circle of Prabhupada disciples that are working with him to manage the rest of the movement. So, or maybe you do something kind of extraordinary, which in your service that Prabhupada will recognize you and maybe call you for something or I want to see him. So, you know, all of us are working like that. So especially generally the service of book distribution or the library party, or in India, of course, those devotees were working hard to build up these places. So, of course, Bhakti Tirtha was very fortunate in that he was able to, through the library party, do extraordinary things that got him close to Prabhupada. And anyway, I couldn't wait for that moment. I wanted some close association. So as we're coming on the bus from the Calcutta airport, I'm thinking, I guess I've got to figure out something. I got to see Prabhupada. And so when the buses arrive, you know, Mayapur is in its infancy for sure. Just the Lotus building, a little bit of the Long building, most of it's under construction. The gate is up with the wall. The Prasadam hall way down on the end. There's nothing, chickpea field. And again, I get that inspiration. Hey, if you're going to see Prabhupada, you better do it now, because nothing, they were told us, when you get off the bus, go find a room. And I said, this is my opportunity. Everybody's going to be looking for rooms. I'll go see Prabhupada. And whatever room's left, I'll take that. So I just immediately ran up trying to, where's Prabhupada, where's Prabhupada? And they gradually, I got to where his room was in the Lotus building on the second floor. And I walk up very confidently, and there's some sannyasi there I didn't recognize. There's someone obviously in India who didn't come to America. I said, I want to see Srila Prabhupada. He's like, well, you come back later for darshan. And I became so disappointed. I said, they're not going to let me in for darshan. You know, this new devotee. And I'm walking away, and I'm looking at the configuration of the building. I said, there must be a back door. So I go the long way, all the way to the end, turn around, come back. And sure enough, there's a back door, and it's wide open. And Prabhupada's sitting right behind the desk with his leg up, one leg up, and his arm resting on it. And he's speaking to two, it looks like local Bengali people, because they're in pants and shirt. And this is, of course, February 77, so his health isn't well. At least it looked like that to me. Who knows? Maybe he's some transcendental symptoms. You don't know what pure. But he's sitting there. You know, I haven't seen in America. He's always very kind of upbeat and actually a hard sorry. So when he came to India, he would be very grave most of the time. So I just sit. I don't go in the door. I sit in the doorway. So I don't go in, and I'm content just to sit there. Wow, Prabhupada's right there. I'm so happy. And Bhakti Tirtha, was Ganesham at the time, is in the room. And I kind of know him briefly from Chicago and interactions, and he sees me sitting there, so he says, come on in. Well, happily I come in, and I go to the corner, and I know I'm not supposed to be there, so I just, let me sit quiet and not disturb anything, and I got my beads, I'm just chanting very softly, you don't know I'm there, I just want to be in the room. And I'm seeing Prabhupada interact with these people speaking in Bengali. So I think within about 5 or 10 minutes, it was time for them to go. Prabhupada kind of motioned. And the door opens, I'm watching them walk out, and I catch eyes with that Maharaj. He catches my eyes, and he's got the face like, you rascal. Like, I just turn and I look at Prabhupada. And I'm just, please don't kick me out. I'm not going to disturb anything. I just want to be in the room with you for some time. And internally, I'm thinking like this. And I hear the door close, and it's just me and Prabhupada in the room. And so he's sitting back with his back against the wall, and he just closes his eyes. And it appears like he's resting, just resting like that. And I'm just chanting japa for a while. And within about 5 or 10 minutes, some other GBCs come in, Maharajas are in and out. And the conversation is very grave. I've never seen such a grave tone. Of course, I mentioned America, Prabhupada's always pretty upbeat. And then gradually over time, I don't know what the period of time was. To me, I think it was probably an hour or more. The room starts to fill up. Devotees aren't leaving. They're coming in and sitting down. And Prabhupada's, I don't know if questions are being asked or if he's just talking, but it's very serious conversation, very grave. And the room begins to pack up a little more. And devotees themselves, too, they're very... you don't know how to react because at least for me, you never seen Prabhupada like this. You don't know what to think. So gradually, eventually, you're watching all the movements of Prabhupada. He kind of looks over as the doors beginning to open. And these Madhajis from New Vrindavan, I can't remember their names, but they were famous for traveling in the van and selling Prabhupada's books. Like the men were doing. We had Radha Damodar, but they had a ladies' party from New Vrindavan. And, they're performing the same austerities, if not more. At least we had a bus with deities you come back to with morning program. There's somebody's cooking for you. Maybe you have to shower outside. But these girls would pull up behind the gas station, sleep, get up in the morning, open up the water tap, take their bath outside, cook for themselves, go out and sell books. Really, if you think that's some austere service. And of course, they were well known in the movement for that, and they were getting big results. So anyway, the Mataji kind of sticks her head, and it looks like there's no room, and she's going to leave. And as soon as Prabhupada sees her, I remember his face just lit up. Just like instantaneous. He's just so happy. He's like, move. He's make room. And he brings them in, he sits them right in front, 3 of them. And immediately he's just laughing and he's joking. I don't remember the conversation, but the whole room just became, a big, everybody's just happy and laughing out within a second. Even though he looked like he was so sick before, all gone. Totally just, this is transcendental person, they're not the body. So, one lesson I kind of got out of that, because again, like I mentioned in the beginning, the devotees' moods were always, not that so much, at least for me, we didn't want to try to enjoy Prabhupada, but you wanted to be recognized from Prabhupada. And it was amazing to see how pleased he was with these devotees. He was so pleased with those devotees. So many years later, of course, that was 1977, I met that one devotee, I can't remember her name. But anyway, she's in New Vrindavan. That was probably in 2009. And, we're all talking about Prabhupada memories. And I told her about it. I said, you remember when you were in Mayapur? I said, yeah, I said, you remember coming into that room and you poked your head in? I said, what you didn't see was how Prabhupada transformed when he saw you. I said, he was so happy with you all that he just became like, he was just so joyful. Instantly, before you came in that room, it was just very grave conversation. And actually, she said, I didn't know that. She thought the whole conversation had been like that the whole time when she came in. So, but anyway, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada said, my service was actually assisting Janani Vasprabhu with the deity worship, and also looking after the Goshala. At that time, there was about 6 cows. And word got back to Srila Prabhupada that we were hiring people to utilized the bullocks for plowing the land. So Srila Prabhupada said, why are we spending money in this way? Our devotees should do it. So Jayapataka Maharaj was, plowing the land with the bullocks. There was a mantra for going left and a mantra for going right, die, die, bye, bye, and all of that. There's a way you communicate with the bullocks to get them to, plow through the land. I also was plowing the land, and another devotee called Prabhu, he was also plowing the land. And then after about a month of all of us plowing the land, we all kind of, we were really not up to plowing the land, but because Prabhupada said he wanted us to plow the land, we plowed the land. Whatever he said, whatever he wanted us to do, we would do. And then word finally got back to Srila Prabhupada that we were plowing the land, but then we were not doing other things we were supposed to do. So then we went back to doing the other things we were supposed to do, which the people who plowed the land could not do. So that was a very interesting experience that Prabhupada, what we learned from Prabhupada, that you have to do the needful sometimes. Sometimes you have to be prepared to plow the land. You also have to be prepared to not plow the land. So one time Prabhupada said, plow the land, so we plowed the land. And then another time he said, okay, no more plowing the land, you do this. So then we didn't do that. So in this way, he was training us to be his unconditional servants. That's what I learned from that particular instruction of Srila Prabhupada's. And because plowing the land is physically very challenging. And Jayapataka Maharaj was very good at it. I was very close behind him. So in this way we had a competition to see who could plow the land nicely for Srila Prabhupada.
For me, Prabhupada is everything. Our life started with Prabhupada. Om Ajnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalaka. All these statements for me is not theoretical. It's actually a fact. We were still in deep dark of ignorance. Still we are struggling to come up to the standard of devotion service. But we are not in the standard, but at the same time we are not able to give up devotion service. So that means it's not a cheap thing. So Prabhupada is be-all, end-all for me. But is a progressive. I'm not a Prabhupada fanatic. We are not meant to be. The whole Vedic culture doesn't promote fanaticism. It makes you think. It may take many lifetimes. Doesn't matter. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself says, Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatat Bhakti Rahoitu Kitui. Life after life. But this is my only prayer. Let me be born as a devotee. So we should be ready to take birth. Even Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes even more further. Even if I'm born as a worm due to my own misdeeds, let me be born in the devotee's house so that the kirtan of the devotee will enter into my ears and I'll become purified. So when you have Prabhupada Nishtha, your faith is also very strong. But when you are a Prabhupada fanatic, you are very afraid, just like the Christians. Anything that doesn't appear in Bible, oh yeah, this is all heathenic. We don't not accept. But we are not like that. That's why sometimes I make the point, our God brothers, don't make Prabhupada into Jesus. He's not Jesus. He's more than Jesus. You cannot believe what he is. Let's not make him into Jesus, and let's not make his books into Bible and then oppress in the due course of time all the different people. What is loyalty, what is faith in Prabhupada means. No, this is not such a cheap thing. Yes? Prabhupada, there are certain, like even Sukadeva Goswami, he speaks about Krishna being killed in Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto. It comes, he's hit by the hunter's arrow. Now it's Sukadeva Goswami speaks. Now can we take it so literally, that statement, that Krishna died? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, if we ourselves are eternal, how come Krishna is not eternal? So Krishna never died. But why is this pastime being spoken by Sukadeva Goswami? Why this pastime happened? Is only to bewilder those atheistic class. So they will become more convinced that Krishna is dead, now we can do what we want. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am the cause of remembrance, knowledge and forgiveness. Matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So he doesn't encroach in this minute freedom. But you can use the Shastras for justifying your statement this way or that way. So similarly, Prabhupada has given us this very beautiful understanding of life. I mean, when I see Prabhupada, I see he is the most broadest mind. He is not afraid. And that fearlessness must come in our life if we are proper disciples. You know, I may not be a real classic example of a disciple in terms of rules, but we are following, we are doing as much as we can. Sometimes we also stumble in our way. But the fact of the matter is that faith, it is not Komal Shraddha as a Bhaktivinoda talks. Komal Shraddha means very tender faith. It has to come to a Drida Shraddha, means firm faith. This is what Prabhupada makes it happen in our life. So we are not afraid to meet this Gaudiyas, that Gaudiyas. Well, we will reconcile everything by the knowledge and the understanding which Prabhupada gave us in our life. And that is keeping us strong. We are thankful to Prabhupada about this. We are not afraid of meeting anybody. We will deal with it. Let them say what they have to say. Like Prabhupada always does that. You know that book which Hayagriva brought it out? Spiritual, it's a red book. In all the philosophies he speaks, and Prabhupada, how he dealt with each philosopher so nicely. He has not read all those philosophers, but what do they have to say? He would say what they say, then Prabhupada would either refute or he would say, yes, we also accept in the Vedic, and this is also our acceptance. Like Jesus, according to Christians, according to the Bible statement, I am the way, I am the truth, nobody goes to the Father in the heaven except through me. But for the whole Christian world, it ends with Jesus. Nobody after that, before that, it's there. And somebody told the same statement to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, what did he say? Yes, we accept it 100%. Without Guru, you cannot go to Krishna. So I was telling in a class, I said, what is the difference between the whole Christian world and Prabhupada? The whole Christian world is fanatics. They're kanishtas. They see separate from the interest of the Lord. Whereas Prabhupada, being Uttam Bhagavat, coming to Madhyam to preach, in 1 second he reconciled the whole statement. So this is Prabhupada, you know. So taking shelter of Prabhupada means fearlessness. Abhay Charana, this Abhay Charan must come in our heart also. And this comes like he has done it by taking shelter of his Guru and his instruction. Similarly, he has given us this chance to become fearless in our life.
So one time in Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada, he used to give the class at the side of the Bhajan Kurtir. And every morning he would come out for his japa before the class. And one morning he came out and he looked to the left, he looked to the right. He said, why you haven't cleaned this? This whole balcony, this veranda should be cleaned every day. Should be nice and clean. So he was very insistent upon that. And he was quite perturbed that it had not been done. So then myself and a couple of other brahmacharis, we really cleaned it. We got it spick and spanned, beautifully cleaned. So the next day, he came out and he looked to the left, he looked to the right, he said, very nice. And the way he rolls his eyes, oh, very nice. And then we maintained that for some time, for so many days. But then one day we had a slip where we didn't do it. Things got mixed up, you know, schedules. And so he came out and he said, why you haven't done this? Why? Why you didn't clean this? Cleanly, we have to keep Mayapur clean. So then again we resumed the regular cleaning of that veranda for Srila Prabhupada's pleasure. So what we learned from that is that Srila Prabhupada wanted everything in Mayapur to be neat, clean, and tidy. And this is the holy Dham. And so in the future city of Mayapur, we know that Srila Prabhupada wanted it to be a magnificent, glorious, unique city in the world, and at least it must be neat, clean, and tidy. So we encourage all devotees to please keep Mayapur neat, clean, and tidy. This was Srila Prabhupada's implicit instruction.
Prabhupada was taking massage in his upstairs room with oil and everything, and he heard Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj has come to the gate. So immediately he put a gamsha with full oil. He just went straight to the gate to receive him. See how much Vaishnava etiquette he follows. This is something which Prabhupada did every time. And also recently I read in our Guru Das book how he respected elderly people. Even they are devotees, not devotees in the train or anything. He has utmost respect for elderly people. So he knew how to, because he's seeing the soul. Basically, he is not dealing with a bodily thing, but because his soul in the old body requires more attention and time. And what to speak of Vaishnava, who happened to be his own Siksha Guru. Sridhar Maharaj is the Siksha Guru of Prabhupada. He's one of the Siksha Gurus. So how much honor he has. So this is something we have to learn, how to honor Vaishnavas. Not them, see as us and them. We are not us and them. Oh, we never know whom we need help from. You know, if you can use a camera in Krishna's service and a laptop in Krishna's service, why not a sadhu? You know, after all, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks about Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnu Amanena Manadena Kirtane Sadhari. More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than. He doesn't say as humble as Narada Muni, as tolerant as some great king who tolerated everything, or Ambarish Maharaj. Who has heard of Ambarish Maharaj and Narada Muni? How many people know? But tree and grass, everybody has experience. So this is the example which he gives, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself gives. So that shows that, Vaishnava etiquette has to be, to utmost degree we must follow that, so that offenses don't happen. And this is something which stands out in Prabhupada's life very strongly. He might speak some strong points at a certain time and situation, but he's never without any false ego. After all, Krishna can also get angry. Why not? When he kills a demon, it's not like he was very smilingly, he's really there, giving him good boxes. And the boxes also given by the demon. He's not like sparing Krishna. Oh, he's God, I must, no. They are fighting. Because otherwise they will not do service in the proper way. But that is not like Chanura and Mushtika. It's an interesting episode I heard from Lotus Feet of some very exalted Vaishnavas. They were beating Krishna and it was giving pleasure to Krishna. But it is not considered favorable because their idea was to kill Krishna. Therefore it is not considered bhakti. Whereas the mother Yashoda, she was seeing the milk being boiled over and she was concerned, oh, the milk boils over, it's going to be a disaster. Because she has unlimited milk. Krishna is only interested, but the milk doesn't produce butter and yogurt. Her milk doesn't produce, cow's milk produces. So she was thinking, oh, if the milk is thinking, wow, Mother Yashoda is giving so much milk, she has no limit to her milk. She can go on feeding for next millions of years, Krishna. But what will I do in the meantime? I have no service, so let me commit suicide. So she wanted to boil over and fall on the fire. So Mother Yashoda, she saw in the kitchen that milk being boiled over. She took Krishna, shabak, like that, put him on the ground, went to the kitchen, took the pot out of the flame. So now it might create a displeasure to Krishna. Krishna was all upset. That's where the Damodar Leela starts. He was so upset with Mother Yashoda that he took away in the middle of his drinking, the ecstasy of drinking the milk of his mother. But she had a real reason, because this yogurt, Krishna likes butter. Who's going to get the butter? If the milk commits suicide, there's no butter anymore. So this is called favorable, even though seemingly unfavorable, but it's favorable. So these are types of reconciliation which Prabhupada did that. Like giving sannyas, maybe seemingly not qualified, but he got the job done. Okay, there may be many faults, but Krishna himself says every endeavor is covered with faults, so big deal. things will be reconciled in due course of time.
Classes were one thing, which were always, for me, the word I'm thinking of right now would be mesmerizing. It was, for me, hearing, fortunately, is my favorite thing. Hearing from Prabhupada was indeed mesmerizing for me. But one of the things that I liked, I think even better, was I had the good fortune to go on some morning walks with him, trailing behind as I usually would, and we went on several morning walks in Central Park. And I always thought it was interesting how Prabhupada would connect, or he'd make an observation. There were one time people were doing Tai Chi in the park, and Prabhupada made some comment about that. Why are they wasting their time doing this? I don't know if I should say what he said. I'll say it, you can edit it out if you think it's not appropriate. Prabhupada said, what are they doing? And someone said, they're doing Tai Chi. And he said, what is this Tai Chi? And he said, it's a martial art. They use it for self-defense. If they're in danger, you speed up and it becomes Kung Fu. And Prabhupada said, oh, what a waste of time. He said, I'll just bring my gun. Prabhupada said like that. So he would connect different things we saw on the path, people and places and things, and he would incorporate it into whatever discourse. My hair is standing up again, which is, I think, a healthy sign. He would connect it into whatever was being discussed at the time, and that's what I'm remembering at this moment.
And the quality that stood out for me the most was this, how he was equiposed in all situations. Doesn't necessarily mean that he was always just calm, like the standard view people have of, you see nowadays people think transcendental means you walk around with this stare on your face and nothing bothers you and you walk slow and all these things like that. But all the emotions were there all the time. But at the same time, the effect of those emotions were not like how they were for people who were not pure devotees. You know, he was still the same loving, joyful, determined, purpose person. You know, in Chicago, especially I think some Chicago, Detroit, Mayapur, and he's on the Vyasa-san, and there's, you know, surrounded by hundreds of devotees. And you can see he's fixed on his mission or his life. It's not like he's, let's have a good time now. So happy we're all together. Ha ha ha. And yet no one else feels like you need that also. You know, sometimes in their social interactions, you know, you feel obliged to, I have to make you feel good. You have to make me feel good. And if neither party does that, then somebody's offended. But you see Prabhupada come into the temple room, and even there's older devotees there, the devotees from the 60s standing there. He just walked right by. Not that he's stopping, oh, hi, how are you? Haven't seen you in a long time. How's everything? Hope it was good to see you again. And you never seen them feel like, you know, oh man, Prabhupada didn't speak to me. I can't believe he walked right past me. Nobody felt like that at all. Matter of fact, you felt like I'm hindering him probably. I don't want to get in his way. You know, I don't know, that's a quality which doesn't exist really. You have to be, you can't imitate it. You cannot imitate being a pure devotee. You walk like this, I talk like this, I hold my beads like this, I say like this, or I do like that. You know, we want to come to that platform which comes of its own accord as you get purified. So sometimes for me, you hear people talk, you know, oh, you have to chant your japa like this. And you can't imitate love. You cannot chant your japa with love. You can only chant it with the love you have. And over time, it will purify you. So just seeing that in Prabhupada, even though sometimes he's on the Vyasa-san and he looked like he's upset or something. Actually, if I could lead into a pastime on that, there was, also in Chicago, we were, you know, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, you got a lot of energy. So generally, it was known you shouldn't dance so wild and crazy. You should just kind of Swami step. Maybe you could jump a little bit. But me and another devotee, we just couldn't help ourselves. I'm sorry, we couldn't help. So we were maybe infamous, you could say, for doing hot foot and all these crazy things. And temple president always, hey, you stop that. Don't you know what Prabhupada said? So then we run to another corner and just kind of do it by ourselves. And every now and then the whole temple would break into this crazy dancing. And okay, we won't do that again. But man, that sure felt good. So here we are in Chicago, and of course everybody wants to please Prabhupada. That competition was there. He kind of built that competition up with the book distribution. So in those days, Radha Damodar was probably getting a lot of the attention because they're traveling and they're selling books, and those brahmacharis are the sannyasis. And here the brahmacharis in the temple, considered wimps because you're living with householders and you don't get to travel with sannyasis. So there's this little competition you see naturally when they arrive. So Prabhupada's on the Vyasa-san, they finish greeting the deities, Guru Puja's going on, so everybody begins to dance. And we're starting off very nice and gentle, and you see Prabhupada smiling a little bit and looking around the temple room. And someone, I don't know who began, but someone began dancing a little bit unorthodox. And Prabhupada looks over and he smiles a little bit. Somehow or another, we take that to mean he likes it. So I remember across from Radha Damodar devotees, they caught wind of that. Oh, okay, so they start doing something a little more unauthorized, you can say, than what they were doing. And Prabhupada looks over there and he's shaking his head like this, Indian way. So you don't know if that means yes or no, but we take it to mean he likes it. Now the Chicago devotees see that. So they, it begins to escalate. And Prabhupada's like, he's shaking his head and he's smiling. And at that time, I had broken my leg, so I just come out of a cast. Normally, I'm the person that leads all that heavy dancing. But I couldn't do it because I don't have much strength in my leg. And I'm wanting to. I'm thinking, here's my opportunity. I could jump out there and do that really crazy dance I do in front of Prabhupada. But by Krishna's grace, my leg was not well and I couldn't do it. So my godbrother, Rama Shraddha, he decides, I'll take the lead. So there's a big opening so that Prabhupada can see the deities. He decides at that point to go down the middle of the aisle doing this twisting dance. So he's like the twist kind of, I can't even do it, but up and down, back and forth, and Prabhupada's still going like this. He's shaking, he's laughing. And the devotees think, oh, wow, he's really enjoying it. By that time, Radha Damodar devotees forget it. We're not going to get any more crazier than that. Finally, Prabhupada stops the kirtan. And he says, you never see Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda dancing like this. He says, like this. And then he whips his hand like that and starts the kirtan back up. So anyway, you'll hear different versions of that, depending on who you talk to. Some say he's chastising. I don't remember that. I really don't. I mean, Prabhupada never really just blast a whole room full of devotees in front of the deities. I just remember it was like this escalation where he's really, and he just gave the instruction, and we stopped doing it, and it went right on, and nobody felt really offended, and we all began to jump and dance, in the midst of that. So, kind of in that way, his qualities of, I don't know, he's transcendental. You can't be like that. It's just Prabhupada. So, Prabhupada ki jai.
Unique is his own faith in his Guru. But he was not hammering it every day. He is not talking every time, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada ki jai every minute. And very simple. Because that faith what he had was very natural for him. He was not a fanatic. Neither he doubted his Guru, even though the organization fell apart. But his order was very clear. He got instruction that he should preach in English language. He took that instruction and did whatever he can, and the rest is only history, that he went to West and all these things, everything happened. But this is the foremost quality I feel that Prabhupada has, at least in my case also, just stick to what Prabhupada has given the program, just do it. Nobody may know in the world what you're doing. It doesn't matter how many people. Was Prabhupada a very popular personality in Gaudiya Math? There were many sannyasis were preaching all over, because they were helping Bhaktisiddhanta. If you read his songs, they were stalwart devotees. But it was Prabhupada who belled the cat, as they say. He did it. And we are happy that he did something so remarkable. But he was not minimizing his godbrothers either. He must have spoken you know, because after all he's an outspoken person. He was truthful. Many things he said to protect his devout disciples, because their faith is not strong, they would get bewildered. So to protect his disciples, he said many things. But really speaking, he had utmost regard for his God brothers. Utmost. Utmost. I mean, if you read his songs, one place he calls the jackal Vasudev. You know, Vasudeva was the God brother who was appointed as a guru later on. He was the right-hand man of Bhaktisiddhanta who would give all the shlokas left and right. And they did some mistake. Prabhupada was very upset. And in his songs he writes that. So I was thinking, boy, how am I going to publish this song? Who will, anybody? But Prabhupada had no malice. You know, call a spade, but no need to have a hatred. But he had utmost regard. But what Vasudeva was doing also, when he was in good times, he was doing great service to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So that is one thing stands out for me. Prabhupada had faith in his guru, just go on following his program, and everything will work out in due course. You have to also get purified. Prabhupada was a purified soul. He was not a businessman. He was simply following the process. As when he came to America, he was chanting, having classes. What was he doing? He was not having business plans, how to real estate, make buildings. None of these useless things. Simple prasadam, putting a bottle full of gulab jamuns in New York temple. You know, performing marriages for his disciples. No Gaudiya sannyasis can ever imagine. Buying saris for their own disciples. The sannyasi buying marriage sari. Impossible. But that is Prabhupada.
So one time in Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada was giving a class shortly after the opening of the Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir. And I remember this class very specifically. And this really exemplifies Srila Prabhupada's absolutely sublime character and his humility. This was a very successful moment in his preaching achievement. He had gone to the West, he'd come back, he had built the Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir, and it was the opening ceremony. And he was clearly emotional. And the amazing thing that he said, that I remember very clearly, he said, I'm unfit to be your leader. And I couldn't understand. When I was hearing that then, it didn't register with me. But after reflection upon his words, after all these years, I can realize that out of genuine humility, he actually meant it. He would say, I'm unfit to be your leader. He said, Lord Chaitanya has planted you all over the world. Because previously you were associated with Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. He said, actually, the credit is to you. I am unfit to be your leader. And I could not understand it in those. I just did not know what he was talking about at that time. As a young devotee, I was 24 years old. I had been a devotee for 4 years. And I could not understand. But now I understand it. Is that he actually meant it. That's what really impresses me tremendously, is that he had everything to be proud of. He had everything to boast about. But he genuinely thought he was unqualified. He said, I'm not fit to be your leader. And he actually meant it. I could never do that. As soon as I get a little bit of achievement, you start gloating, you start feeling a little bit elated, but not with Srila Prabhupada. So how can we understand, the purity of such a Mahabhagavat like Srila Prabhupada and his humility, the humility that he displayed in that instance amidst his glorious achievement. And he never ever was proud. But at the same time, he was never ever fearful of chastising people, his competitors, who didn't spread the movement according to the wishes of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Srila Prabhupada's character of humility in the midst of his absolutely amazing achievements is something that's very hard to comprehend. It can only come from someone who's a Mahabhagavat, and that was Srila Prabhupada.
I was having the service of being in Vrindavan, and I was in charge of the kitchen. And Ayodhyapati, who is Govinda Bringa Maharaj, he was the cook. So Prabhupada left, so everybody went to his room, because I was doing service, but I had no time to go to Prabhupada's room, because, you know, I'm too busy with my service. Somebody has to finish the cooking, prasadam has to be taken care of, devotees are coming. So this is more important than sitting with Prabhupada in his room, you know, Prabhupada wants. But the last 3 hours I was next to Prabhupada, sitting. His head was there, and I was sitting here, and I was feeling a little uncomfortable even to touch Prabhupada and do the last massage. You know, at that time he was easily available to everybody. But I was very shy. I thought, wow, I'm so fallen, how can I touch Prabhupada and give him a massage? Let me just do kirtan with the rest of the devotees. And I was very carefully observing his lips. And Prabhupada opened 2 times the mouth. Hare Krishna, that was it. There was only 2 times. But I could see very clearly it was Hare Krishna, and that was it. Prabhupada left just by saying Hare Krishna. Janilo Premadana Koruna Prachu